Usually when we talk about getting a medical diagnosis, there's this expectation of just absolute clinical precision.
Oh, sure, like it's completely mechanical.
Right, exactly. Like mechanical engineering. You fall off a ladder, you break your arm, and the X-ray shows that jagged, undeniable white line.
Right.
The doctor clips it to the light board, points right at it, and just says, there it is. That is the problem.
Well, it's binary. I mean, it's either broken or it's not broken.
And there's a really profound psychological comfort in that, right?
Oh, absolutely.
Oh.
As humans, we desperately want things to be visible. We want problems to be neatly categorized.
So we can just apply a known standardized solution.
Exactly, a standardized fix.
But then you step out of the clinic and into the world of technology entrepreneurship. You decide you want to build a startup from scratch.
And suddenly the X-ray machine is just completely shattered.
Exactly. You realize we are looking at a landscape that is incredibly murky.
Very murky.
You might be sitting there thinking, that you have this brilliant invention, a jagged white line of pure, undeniable genius that the whole world will just instantly recognize.
Right, but here's the reality we are confronting today. Having a brilliant invention absolutely does not make you an innovator.
Yeah.
In fact, if we look closely at the university syllabus and the intensive lecture notes we are unpacking today.
Which are extensive, by the way.
Very. They show that falling in love with your own technology might actually be the single most dangerous, fatal thing a tech entrepreneur can do.
It's the ultimate definition of muddy waters in the business world, isn't it?
Totally. What you are absolutely convinced is a cure might actually be a poison.
If you fundamentally misunderstand the patient.
Right, which in this context is the market.
You can engineer the most elegant software architecture in human history.
But if the market doesn't want it, I mean, you've just engineered a ghost town.
Yeah. And that is exactly why we're here. Welcome to a very special, highly intensive deep dive into the world of technology, entrepreneurship, and innovation.
We're treating this as a strategic study session today.
Yeah, we are. Whether you are currently cramming for a massive midterm exam, or maybe you're preparing to walk into a boardroom to pitch a venture capitalist.
Or, you're literally sitting in your garage right now staring at a screen, just trying to build the next tech unicorn.
Right. Consider this your comprehensive audio textbook.
We really have a formidable stack of source material today.
We do. We're synthesizing a complete university syllabus and a very specific, granular set of course lecture notes.
Notes that cover the absolute A to Z of IT startups.
So we're going to save you countless hours of reading. I'm going to walk you through the overarching roadmap.
Taking us from the inception of a raw idea to defining the venture.
And finally, structuring the actual business plan.
Right. And I'm going to act as your strategic filter here. I'll be highlighting the underlying mechanisms, the critical academic frameworks.
And crucially, how to actually apply this to real-world business problems.
Exactly. We are going to ensure you confidently understand these concepts so you can ace any exam questions thrown your way.
And most importantly, so you can navigate that murky landscape without crashing your startup.
That is the mission. We have to move from the abstract, highly romanticized realm of, having an idea.
To the brutal, concrete economic reality of building a functioning company.
Right. And to do that effectively, we have to start by completely resetting our foundational definitions.
Okay, let's unpack this. We are starting with section 1, separating invention from innovation.
Because before we can even talk about building a business, we have to define the raw material we are working with.
Yeah. The source materials draw a massive, heavily bolded distinction between an invention and an innovation.
And it is not just semantics. I mean, it is literally the difference between success and bankruptcy.
Wow.
It's a foundational concept. And look, if you are tracking this for an exam, it is a highly probable focus area.
So let's define it.
The lecture notes define an invention as the very first occurrence of an idea for a new product or a new process.
Okay. It is the genesis.
Right. It is the raw creation of something that just did not exist before.
It is the stereotypical light bulb going off in the inventor's head, right?
Oh, yeah.
Or that late-night breakthrough in the laboratory.
Exactly. But an innovation is vastly different.
Okay, how so?
The sources define innovation as the first attempt to carry that idea out into actual practice.
Into practice. Got it.
Yeah. Innovation is the entire exhausting process.
Right.
From the inception of the idea through the developing and testing phase.
But all the way to successfully putting that innovation into use.
Right. Whether that is commercializing it in a market or, deploying it to drastically improve an existing business operation.
Let me throw an analogy at this to see if it holds up.
Sure, go for it.
Let's say I am a brilliant software developer. An invention is like a revolutionary piece of compression code I write.
Okay.
And it just sits completely idle on my local hard drive. It works flawlessly. It is mathematically beautiful. It compresses files better than anything on Earth.
But nobody knows it exists.
Exactly, and nobody's using it. So that's the invention.
Yes.
Now, an innovation is when I take that raw code, build a user-friendly interface around it, negotiate server space, launch it as a cloud storage company.
And actually convince millions of people to pay $5 a month to use it.
Right. Does that hold up?
That analogy holds up perfectly.
Yeah.
And it really highlights the mechanism of how value is actually created.
Okay, good.
What is fascinating here, and what the texts really emphasize, is the timeline.
The timeline between invention and innovation.
Yeah. There is often a massive temporal gap between those two stages. The sources explicitly note that there can be a delay of years, if not entire decades.
Decades. Wow.
Yeah, before an invention has the potential to become an innovation.
So from the lab to the market to common usage.
Right. And that terrifying empty void is bridged by one specific entity.
The entrepreneur.
Exactly. The entrepreneur is the bridge.
The text refers to them as the innovative economic agent.
Yes.
But let's talk about the pioneer penalty here, because history is just littered with brilliant inventors who died penniless.
Oh, absolutely. While someone else became the innovative economic agent who got rich.
Think about Xerox PARC in the 1970s.
Oh, great example.
They invented the graphical user interface, the mouse, Ethernet networking. I mean, they were the ultimate inventors.
But it took Steve Jobs and Apple, and later Bill Gates, to actually cross that bridge.
Right, to become the innovators who actually commercialized it. Xerox invented the future, but Apple and Microsoft innovated it and captured all the economic value.
That is a phenomenal historical example and exactly what the syllabus is teaching here.
Thanks.
The innovative ideas, the raw inventions, might actually be the easy part, relatively speaking.
Easy on paper, anyway.
Right. But the role of the entrepreneur is to achieve what the text calls successful economic implementation.
Which sounds heavy.
It is. They have to take on the staggering responsibility of combining all the disparate factors: capital, labor, marketing, supply chain.
Everything necessary to lead those innovations to market.
Yes. And the sources do not paint this as some glamorous, glossy magazine cover fantasy either.
No, they really dig into the psychological and social reality of standing on that bridge.
Because being an entrepreneur is socially acceptable now, right?
Yeah.
It's celebrated.
Yeah, we practically worship them. And economies absolutely depend on them to drive macroeconomic growth.
But on an individual level, it requires taking total, crushing responsibility.
Yeah, dealing with intense fear and profound uncertainty.
Exactly. As an employee, your risk is capped.
You get your paycheck and you go home.
Right. But as an entrepreneur, you are constantly questioning whether your idea, your execution, and your timing will actually survive in a highly competitive, unforgiving marketplace.
You are basically walking into the fog every single day.
You really are.
Yeah.
Which brings us back to that provocative hook we started with.
The most dangerous trap for tech entrepreneurs specifically.
Yes. The entrepreneurial process inherently stretches your capabilities across dozens of domains, right? Finance, hiring, legal.
But for technology entrepreneurs, the unique, fatal danger highlighted in the notes is an exclusive, obsessive focus on the product.
Or the service's technical features.
Yes, falling in love with the code.
Right. Obsessing over the elegant architecture while completely ignoring the human being who is actually supposed to use it.
Focusing entirely on the technology without giving rigorous, honest consideration to whether it actually addresses a real market problem.
You have to ask the brutal question. Are there actual human beings or actual companies who are in enough pain that they would genuinely open their wallets and pay for this?
But why is this such a common trap? I mean, if these founders are literal geniuses, why do they so consistently blind themselves to the market?
Well, if we connect this to the broader psychology of highly technical people, it fundamentally comes down to comfort zones and control.
Control, how so?
Think about it. For a brilliant software engineer, writing code is a controllable environment. It's deterministic.
You type a specific command, and the computer executes it exactly as instructed.
Exactly. It obeys the laws of logic. The market, however, is the exact opposite.
The market is chaotic.
Very chaotic, emotional, and highly non-deterministic.
Yeah.
Talking to potential customers, hearing them say your life's work is confusing, or worse, that they simply do not care about it.
Oh, that's brutal.
It is. It is a deeply uncomfortable, ego-bruising experience. So the natural psychological defense mechanism is to retreat.
Right. The tech entrepreneur retreats back to the computer, back to the dark room, and just keeps adding features.
They convince themselves that if they just make the technology slightly faster, slightly more advanced.
It will eventually become so undeniably perfect that it will just sell itself.
But the reality is, no technology has ever sold itself.
Never.
Never. The sources are adamant that true innovations are incredibly difficult to develop and implement precisely because they require a collaborative effort.
You can't rely on the lone genius myth.
No, a well-rounded, diverse team is essential for long-term survival. You need people who are experts in the chaotic reality of the market.
Marketing, sales, operational logistics, customer psychology.
Exactly. All of it.
Okay, to make sure this is entirely actionable for the listener, especially if they are, facing a test on this material soon, we need to crystallize the core principles.
Good idea. The syllabus explicitly highlights this distinction.
It does. So if you are tracking the exam prep components of this deep dive, here is the foundational stress test question you must be able to answer.
Okay, here we go.
The question is, explain the key difference between invention and innovation, and describe the specific trap that technology entrepreneurs often fall into.
Right, and based on everything we've unpacked, your core answer needs to define invention as the raw, first occurrence of an idea.
Whereas innovation is the grueling process of carrying that idea into actual economic practice.
Yes, and you must position the entrepreneur as the vital bridge who achieves that successful economic implementation.
And what about the fatal trap?
You'd say the trap is the psychological retreat into exclusively focusing on the product's technical features.
Right, arrogantly ignoring whether it actually solves a validated market problem that customers will pay to fix.
Exactly. That hits every critical mechanism. It demonstrates you understand not just what the terms mean, but how they interact in reality.
Fantastic. So let's assume our founder hasn't fallen into the trap.
Okay, they avoided it.
Yeah, they realize they need a market. That brings us organically to the next stage of our roadmap, Section 2.
Structuring the dream.
Exactly. We've established that you need to solve a real market problem. The next logical step is identifying exactly who you are solving it for.
And what structural form that solution is going to take.
Right. We are moving from the abstract concept to defining the actual venture.
So let's start with the formal definition of a venture, as laid out in the syllabus.
What does it say?
A venture is defined as a new business, or a new business activity launched by entrepreneurs.
Or even within existing institutions, right?
Yes, exactly. But it involves the potential for both return and risk. It is the structural manifestation of the founder's vision for a new product or service.
But the text is very careful to clarify that having a vision does not mean carving a rigid master plan into stone tablets and refusing to deviate.
Oh, absolutely not. It heavily emphasizes the iterative process.
Iteration is key.
This is a critical distinction between amateur founders and expert entrepreneurs.
Amateurs think the idea is perfect on day one.
Right, but expert entrepreneurs know that developing raw ideas into thriving, profitable ventures is a messy, highly iterative process.
Ideas are practically never hatched, fully formed, and perfect.
No, they morph. They evolve over time as you are forced to gather new information.
And analyze the brutal results of your initial experiments in the real world.
Because, as we established, the market is chaotic. It never behaves the way your spreadsheet predicts it will.
Spreadsheets don't have feelings.
True. The lecture notes explicitly state a golden rule. Expert entrepreneurs know that no matter how comprehensively they think they understand a market, that market will nearly always behave differently than they expect.
Sometimes radically, aggressively differently.
Yes.
Take a company like Slack.
Oh, perfect example.
Right. It is a massive enterprise communication tool now. But it started as a video game company called Tiny Speck.
I remember that.
Yeah, the game was a total failure. The market didn't want it. But the internal communication tool they built just to help their developers chat with each other.
That was the innovation the market actually craved.
Exactly. If they had stubbornly stuck to their original vision of being a gaming company out of pure pride, they would have gone bankrupt.
That is the perfect illustration. Sticking to an original idea out of stubbornness is fatal.
Your goal isn't to be right.
Exactly. The ultimate overarching goal is not to prove you were right. The goal is to create value for customers.
Right. And if your initial product does not perfectly fit their needs or desires, you have to remember that customers are not captive.
They always have alternative choices.
Yeah.
They will simply take their money somewhere else.
Yeah. The expert entrepreneur possesses an unwavering determination to make the overall venture successful.
But they maintain extreme, radical flexibility on the specific how of achieving that success.
The course materials provide some massive paradigm-shifting examples of this iterative venture creation. They point to companies that have completely rewired our global economy.
Yes, the text highlights Facebook, which scaled to billions of users and completely re-engineered how humanity stays connected to extended social networks.
And it points to Twitter, which took the concept of a microblog and revolutionized the global flow of real-time information and pithy commentary.
And it highlights Tesla Motors. They didn't just build a car, but systematically created the entire market for the premium all-electric sports car.
Forcing all the legacy automakers to pivot.
Right, but those are behemoths now. When they started, they had to make very specific choices about exactly what type of venture they were building. They had to pick a lane.
And this is where the syllabus introduces a vital framework, the venture types matrix. This looks like a massive cornerstone of the curriculum.
It absolutely is.
Yeah.
Understanding this matrix is non-negotiable for this unit.
Okay, let's break it down.
The course categorizes all potential ventures based on two intersecting axes: who your target customer is and what specific offering you are providing them.
Okay, let's map out this grid mentally for everyone listening. On the customer axis, we are looking at three primary targets: B2B, B2C, and B2G.
Let's skip the basic acronym definitions because anyone listening to this deep dive knows business to business, business to consumer, and business to government.
Right, let's dive straight into the psychology of those buyers instead.
Good. And on the offering axis, we simply have products versus services.
Okay, so to populate the grid, a B2C product is something tangible sold to an individual, like aspirin, a personal computer, a DVD player, a motorcycle.
Yep. And a B2C service is intangible labor sold to an individual. Things like daycare, landscaping, roofing, or going to the dentist.
Simple enough. And for the corporate side, a B2B product would be enterprise resource planning software, heavy industrial machinery, or commercial vehicle fleets.
Right. A B2B service would be outsourced corporate accounting, commercial building maintenance, or executive training programs.
And finally, the government sector, D2G.
B2G products involve massive procurement contracts. We are talking military equipment, specialized secure server hardware, or municipal infrastructure.
And B2G services could involve private security contracting, surveillance analysis, or specialized facilities management for government installations.
Okay, so the grid makes logical sense.
It does. But here's the mandate from the syllabus that really caught my attention.
Oh, the golden rule.
Yes, it states a golden rule. Aspiring entrepreneurs must, without exception, limit their initial idea development to one single quadrant of that matrix.
Yes, that constraint is vital.
But I gotta say, I have to push back on this fiercely.
Okay, let's hear it.
Let's say I am that brilliant developer again, and I build a revolutionary new project management software. It scales infinitely in the cloud.
Okay.
It costs me literally zero marginal dollars to add a new user.
Sure.
If my software is that good, why shouldn't I put up a landing page and sell it to massive Fortune 500 companies while simultaneously letting college students buy individual licenses and maybe even bidding on a local government contract? If this software works for everyone, shouldn't I cast the widest net possible to maximize my only revenue and ensure I survive?
It is the most common and arguably the most dangerous assumption first-time founders make.
Really?
Yes. If we connect this to the brutal operational reality of running a startup, early-stage ventures do not fail because they lack ambition.
What do they fail from?
They fail because they bleed out their limited resources.
Aha.
You have extremely limited time, highly constrained capital, and a tiny personnel bandwidth. The text vehemently argues that it is difficult enough to achieve product-market fit and create genuine value for a single, highly focused type of customer.
So spreading it out just dilutes everything.
Exactly. If you try to serve two vastly different customer types simultaneously, you will literally tear your company apart from the inside.
Because the software might be the same, but the way you sell it and the way you support it is fundamentally different.
Yes. You have to understand the deeply contrasting psychological dynamics of these buyers, which the text details extensively.
Okay, let's analyze B2B first. Why do companies target other businesses?
Generally, businesses possess vastly more capital than individual retail consumers. But more importantly, their buying motivations are strictly, ruthlessly rational.
Rational how?
The text outlines three, and only three, primary ways you can create value in a B2B context.
Okay, what are they?
Number one, your product helps the company make more money by increasing their sales. Number two, your product helps the company save money by drastically decreasing their operational costs.
And number 3.
Or number three, your product helps the company comply with complex government regulations or industry norms, thereby avoiding massive fines.
So it is pure unemotional return on investment, ROI.
100%. Businesses do not care about fashionable trends or whimsical branding.
The corporate procurement officer does not care if your app has a fun color scheme.
No, they care about the bottom line.
Yeah.
If you can definitively prove your software saves them $1 million a year, they will buy it.
The text gives a brilliant example of a massive B2B pivot, actually. Amazon.
Oh, Amazon Web Services, AWS.
Yeah. We all intuitively think of Amazon as the ultimate B2C e-commerce giant, but AWS is a B2B titan.
Huge. Amazon realized they had built massive internal server farms just to handle the holiday shopping rush, leaving them with excess capacity the rest of the year.
So they packaged that infrastructure and sold it as a B2B service.
They managed data centers for other companies, including their own direct competitors in the streaming space like Netflix.
Because it is fundamentally cheaper for Netflix to pay Amazon for server space than it is for Netflix to spend billions building their own data centers.
Exactly. It fulfills B2B value rule number 2.
Yeah.
It saves the customer money.
Precisely. Now, contrast that ruthless rationality with B2C dynamics.
Consumers are entirely different creatures.
Yes, they have an insatiable desire for functional products that solve problems, but their buying decisions are heavily clouded by emotion, identity, and status.
Right. Consumers want things that are fashionable, adventurous, whimsical, or highly entertaining.
Okay, I see the operational nightmare now.
Right.
If I am selling my project management software, the marketing campaign I need to convince a corporate chief information officer who only cares about SOC2 compliance and a 5% efficiency gain, that campaign is going to be incredibly dry and data heavy.
Very.
If I show that same marketing campaign to a freelance graphic designer who just wants a fun, intuitive app to organize their life, they will be bored to tears.
Completely alienated. The messaging, the pricing tiers, the customer support response times, they require two completely different company cultures.
It is like trying to speak two entirely different languages simultaneously.
It really is. The text uses Dell as the prime example of a company living in a hybrid reality, selling to both businesses and consumers.
But Dell is a multi-billion-dollar legacy corporation.
Exactly. And the text points out that even with virtually unlimited resources, Dell has to maintain completely separate operational universes to handle this.
Separate universes.
Yes, they have entirely different web environments for enterprise versus retail. Their internal corporate structure, their reporting alignment, their sales teams, they are bifurcated.
Wow.
The B2B computers have different price points, different service level agreements, and different hardware warranties than the B2C computers.
So a startup with 5 people in a garage simply does not have the bandwidth, the capital, or the cognitive load capacity to build 2 parallel supply chains and marketing departments at once.
No way. You must pick one quadrant. Once you achieve market dominance there and have the capital to expand, then you can attempt a cross-quadrant expansion.
Okay, the restriction makes total sense when you look at the hidden costs of customer acquisition.
It's all about focus.
So if I am listening to this and I am highly motivated to start a venture, I know I need to pick a quadrant, but I don't actually have the core idea yet. How do I find one?
The syllabus dedicates time to the idea generation process.
Walk us through it.
It outlines a very clear, logical flow. First, identify a point of pain in a specific target market.
Okay.
Second, innovate a product or service to alleviate that pain. Third, rigorously test different business models. And fourth, explore scalable ways to acquire those customers.
But it all hinges on that first step, doesn't it? Finding the pain.
Yes. The text quotes David Cohen, the founder and CEO of the massive startup accelerator Techstars.
What's his advice?
His advice is profound in its absolute simplicity. He tells founders, look at what is bugging you.
Look at what is bugging you. I love that. It reminds me of the origin story of so many great tools.
Right.
The founders were just trying to do their normal jobs, and the existing tools were so bad, they got incredibly frustrated.
Yes. Startups are fundamentally based on solving a problem. And the most authentic, verifiable problems are usually discovered while you're busy working on some other project. and you hit a massive friction point.
You realize this administrative process is terrible. I am wasting 10 hours a week on this. I could write a script to fix this.
That personal frustration is your point of pain. If it bugs you, it almost certainly bugs thousands of other professionals.
So, synthesizing this entire section into the core principles for our listeners' mental framework.
Let's do the practice question. If you were testing your knowledge on this syllabus, the critical concept to master is this. Compare and contrast the buying motivations of B2B and B2C ventures, and comprehensively explain the operational logic behind why an early-stage startup must initially focus on only one customer quadrant.
Got it. To nail that concept, you have to articulate that B2B buying is driven entirely by rational return on investment.
Specifically, making money, saving money, or achieving compliance. Businesses do not make whimsical purchases.
Right. B2C, however, is driven by a chaotic mix of functional needs, emotions, status, and entertainment.
And the operational logic for restricting a startup to one quadrant is that the customer acquisition strategies, pricing models, and support infrastructure for these two groups are fundamentally incompatible.
Trying to serve both simultaneously drains a startup's limited resources.
Whereas managing a hybrid model, as seen with Dell, requires massive, entirely separate corporate structures that only mature companies can afford.
That is a flawless synthesis of the market realities.
Glad you agree.
All right, let's organically transition into Section 3, the roadmap to reality, mastering the business plan.
Okay, moving down the timeline.
So we have progressed down the timeline. You are an entrepreneur who has bravely crossed the bridge from invention to innovation.
You have ruthlessly chosen your single venture quadrant.
Let's say a B2B SaaS product solving a very specific point of pain you discovered while working in logistics.
Great.
But now you hit the next wall. How do you actually convince a cynical bank manager, an angel investor, or even just convince your own anxious co-founders that this is a viable, scalable enterprise and not just a hallucination?
You have to translate the vision into a highly structured strategic narrative. You need a formal business plan.
But a business plan isn't just a pitch deck, right?
No. The source materials are very clear on the dual purpose of this document. It is not just a brochure for investors, it is an internal guide.
An internal guide for the founders.
Yes. It forces the founding team to intellectually walk through the sequential stages of starting and managing the business.
It serves as a rigorous, stress-tested roadmap for how to actually structure, operate, and eventually grow the new venture.
Because the act of writing it forces you to confront the operational blind spots you naturally ignore when you are just, dreaming about the product.
Yeah. And the structure of this document is heavily emphasized in the syllabus. It is treated as a foundational template every founder must master.
Yes. The lecture notes explicitly deconstruct a professional business plan into 3 highly distinct main sections.
Let's lay them out.
First, the introduction, which houses the table of contents and the critical executive summary.
Second, the body of the business plan, which is the massive analytical core detailing the market opportunity, the product benefits, the marketing strategy, the management team, and the operational logistics.
And third, the support materials, or appendices.
Let's do a deep, granular dive into the critical elements within these sections, because the course material is incredibly prescriptive about the psychology of what makes each part effective.
Absolutely. Let's start right at the top with the executive summary.
Okay.
The executive summary is universally acknowledged as the most critical component, primarily because of a brutal reality.
It is often the only part an investor will actually read.
Sad but true. If you do not hook them here, the rest of the plan is irrelevant.
So what has to be in it?
The text mandates that it must emphatically highlight the key strategic issues of the plan. But the single most vital element that must be communicated with absolute clarity is your company's distinctive competence.
Distinctive competence. What does that mean in practical terms? Does it just mean saying, we are the best?
No, it is much deeper than that. Distinctive competence refers to the highly specific, incredibly difficult to replicate factors that will allow your business to win in a ruthless market.
It answers the question, what is the singular thing you do better than literally anyone else on Earth?
Exactly. Think about Google's early business plan. Their distinctive competence wasn't just, we have a search engine.
Right, everyone had one.
Their distinctive competence was the PageRank algorithm, a proprietary, mathematically superior way of indexing the web that Yahoo and AltaVista simply did not possess.
So if your distinctive competence isn't immediately obvious in the first page, the investor just throws the plan in the trash.
Pretty much.
Okay, moving into the body, the opportunity analysis and market validation.
This section is where you prove you aren't just guessing. It needs to reflect a terrifyingly deep knowledge of your target industry.
You present the analytical highlights of your market research.
But there is a crucial structural rule highlighted in the notes regarding information architecture. You must keep the narrative flowing.
So no giant data dumps in the middle of a paragraph.
Right. Therefore, all the highly detailed granular market research studies, the dense spreadsheets, and the raw census data.
Must be exiled to the appendices in the third section.
Yes. The body of the plan is for the analytical conclusions. The appendix is for the mathematical proof.
Okay, then we reach the product or service description, and there is a very specific, almost psychological rule here, especially for the tech entrepreneurs we warned earlier.
Yes, we are circling directly back to our opening thesis. When describing the product in the business plan, the text states it is absolutely essential to write from the user's perspective.
The founder must ruthlessly suppress the urge to dwell on technical specifications.
You cannot just list the architectural features. You must relentlessly highlight how the technology actually creates tangible value for the user.
You have to outline the specific human benefits and exactly how it alleviates their point of pain.
It's the classic iPod example, right?
Oh, yes. When Apple launched the iPod, they didn't write a business plan boasting about a 5 GB, 1.8-inch hard drive with a FireWire port.
Because no consumer knows what that means or why they should care.
Exactly. The user perspective was 1,000 songs in your pocket. That is benefit.
No one cares how mathematically beautiful your compression algorithm is if they don't immediately understand how it makes their life easier.
Precisely. Focus on the outcome, not the tool.
Next, we move into the marketing strategy and sales section. And this is the graveyard where thousands of brilliant tech products go to die.
Because having a superior product is simply not enough.
Not at all. The text issues a stern warning. Do not underestimate the importance of presenting a well-conceived sales strategy.
You can have the cure for a disease, but without an aggressively efficient, highly documented approach to beating a path to the doors of potential customers, the company will fail.
You have to map out the entire psychological funnel.
Yeah.
How do they hear about you?
Yeah.
How do you capture their lead? What is the conversion mechanism?
But here is where I was genuinely baffled when I was reading through the source material for this section.
Oh, about the competitors.
Yes. There is a deeply counterintuitive rule regarding how you analyze your competitors in this marketing plan.
It trips up everyone.
The text explicitly says, avoid criticizing your competition's products too severely.
Right.
Wait, if my product is genuinely, objectively superior, why shouldn't I use the business plan to completely trash the competition?
It's a fair question.
Shouldn't I highlight every single flaw, bug, and failure in their legacy system to prove why my startup is necessary?
It feels incredibly counterintuitive because, as founders, we are emotionally invested in our superiority. We want to shout about it.
Yeah. I built a better mousetrap. Look how terrible the old mousetrap is.
But the source material is deploying a brilliant piece of psychological insight here regarding the audience reading the plan.
Who is reading it?
If you criticize the competition with too much venom or too harshly, the reader, who is usually a bank loan officer, a VC, or a partner who's completely neutral.
Right, they aren't part of your organization.
Exactly. They will experience a subconscious psychological reaction. They will naturally tend to empathize with the unrepresented party.
Really, a ruthless venture capitalist is going to feel empathy for a massive corporate competitor just because I was mean to them in a PDF.
Well, it isn't emotional empathy. It is intellectual skepticism. It is human nature.
Okay, unpack that.
When someone is aggressively, breathlessly attacking a third party who isn't in the room to defend themselves, the listener's internal alarm bells go off.
Oh, I see.
They immediately become skeptical of the narrator. The investor wonders, are the competitor's products really that fundamentally broken? Or is this founder just deeply arrogant, lacking objectivity, and trying to mask their own insecurities by playing aggressively defensive?
Oh, wow, I never thought about it like that. So by attacking them, you don't make the competitor look bad. You make yourself look defensive, petty, and emotionally unstable.
Two traits investors absolutely hate.
That makes so much sense.
You lose credibility. The strategic rhetorical position recommended by the text is show, don't tell.
So how do you do it?
You must concentrate entirely on the positive aspects of your own product's ability to seamlessly meet existing market needs.
You present cold, objective information, data points, feature-to-feature comparison matrices without the vitriolic commentary.
And you allow the readers, who consider themselves highly intelligent, to come to their own natural conclusions about your competition's inferiority based on that objective data.
Leading the investor to discover the competitor's flaws themselves is infinitely more persuasive than shouting it at them.
That is a masterclass in rhetorical strategy right there.
Okay, moving on to the human element, the talent and management team capabilities section.
If you are utilizing this business plan primarily to attract outside investment, this section is arguably tied with the executive summary for importance.
Because ideas are cheap, execution is everything.
It is a hard truth. Your management team's specific talents, their past successes, and their synergistic skills are some of the only truly unique, defensible aspects of your company.
You must explicitly indicate why the human team itself is a core pillar of your company's distinctive competence.
You need to prove that even if a massive competitor stole your exact idea, they couldn't execute it as well because they don't have your specific people.
Investors ultimately invest in the resilience of founders as much as the viability of ideas.
And finally, we ground all of this soaring ambition in the resourcing and operational plan.
The gritty stuff.
This is where the visionary founder proves they understand the unglamorous, gritty logistics of actually running a business.
You must document a thorough, viable understanding of how the physical products or digital services will actually be produced and delivered.
What are the quality control procedures? What is your maximum manufacturing or server capacity?
Will you build internal operational capacity, or will you rely on external third-party contractors?
How will the logistics scale when you go from 100 users to 100,000?
You also must identify your critical suppliers, evaluate the existential risks of supply chain shortages, and describe the legal architecture of your anticipated contractual relationships.
It proves to the investor that you aren't just a dreamer, you are an operator.
Okay. To lock this vital framework into our listener's mind, practice question time.
If you are preparing for a pitch or an examination on venture structuring, this is the core synthesis you need. Outline the specific architectural sections of a standard business plan and critically analyze the psychological rationale behind why a founder's marketing strategy should rigorously avoid heavily criticizing the competition.
Okay, to master that, you outline the 3 pillars. 1, the introduction, containing the executive summary, which must immediately establish the venture's distinctive competence.
2, the body, containing the market opportunity, the user-focused product benefits, the sales strategy, the irreplaceable team, and the gritty operational logistics.
3, the support materials, which house the dense raw data in the appendices to keep the main narrative clean.
And the critical psychological rationale for not thrashing the competition is that it inherently triggers intellectual skepticism and subconscious empathy for the unrepresented party within the reader.
It frames the founder as subjective, defensive, and arrogant.
The superior strategy is to present objective, comparative data and allow the investor to arrive at the conclusion of your superiority independently.
Flawless. That demonstrates a deep, mature understanding of both the mechanics and the psychology of fundraising.
Excellent. Now we are entering the final and perhaps most complex phase of our journey, Section 4, the ecosystem policy, trends, and protection.
Up until this very moment, we have been discussing the idea, the venture matrix, and the business plan as if they exist in a perfectly sterile vacuum.
Right, as if it's just the founder, the customer, and the investor in an empty white room.
But to fully master this syllabus and survive in reality, we have to look outside the window.
We have to examine the massive external macro forces that surround and exert pressure on the business.
This is where the curriculum expands into macro-level ecosystem dynamics.
Yes, a venture is highly porous. It is constantly interacting with an entrepreneurial ecosystem. And the primary framework the syllabus introduces to map this is called the triple helix.
The triple helix, it sounds like the title of a sci-fi thriller.
I know, right?
What exactly is it?
It is a foundational innovation model that describes the deeply intertwined, interdependent relationship between 3 massive pillars of society: the university, the industry, and the government.
Oh, interesting.
True, paradigm-shifting innovation rarely happens in isolation. It happens at the intersection of these 3 strands.
Okay, let's break them down. What do universities do?
The universities act as the generators of foundational, exploratory research and new scientific knowledge. They do the deep science.
And industries.
The industry, the entrepreneurs and corporations, acts as the commercialization engine, taking that raw knowledge and transforming it into viable, scalable products.
And then government.
The government acts as the ultimate architect of the environment, providing the necessary policy, the foundational research funding, and the regulatory frameworks that either stimulate or drastically inhibit this transfer of technology.
Think about the literal creation of the internet or the ecosystem of Silicon Valley. It perfectly models the triple helix.
Exactly.
The U.S. government, specifically DARPA, provided the massive funding and the defense-related imperative. Universities like Stanford and MIT conducted the raw foundational computer science research.
And then industry startups, entrepreneurs, and eventual tech giants commercialize those protocols into the digital economy we live in today.
If you remove any one of those three strands, the entire system collapses.
It completely falls apart. Understanding where your venture sits within this helix is crucial, especially for tech entrepreneurs who are attempting to spin off highly complex research directly from academic institutions.
But the syllabus also explicitly warns about the friction within this system, right?
Yes, it discusses the stimulants and, more importantly, the barriers to technology transfer. It categorizes them into political, institutional, and project-level inhibitors.
Right. You might have written the perfect business plan, secured your venture capital, and identified your market pain point.
But if you run into a political barrier, like a sudden international trade embargo on the microchips you need, or shift in government grant allocations, your venture can be paralyzed overnight.
Or consider institutional barriers. If you developed your core algorithm while using university servers, the university's technology transfer office might aggressively claim ownership of your intellectual property, trapping your startup in legal limbo for years.
The macro environment dictates the micro survival, which perfectly transitions us into the next critical piece of the ecosystem outlined in the curriculum: current trends.
The syllabus mandates that students analyze specific, massive macro trends that are violently reshaping how tech entrepreneurship operates today.
Let's unpack the ones specifically listed. First, it highlights the gig economy.
The gig economy has fundamentally altered the operational and resourcing plans we discussed in Section 3.
Completely. A decade ago, scaling a tech company required hiring massive fleets of full-time employees, which burned incredible amounts of capital.
Today, startups can utilize platforms to source highly specialized, fractional talent on demand.
You can hire an elite developer in Estonia for a 3-week sprint, a graphic designer in Brazil for a logo, and a fractional CFO in London for your pitch deck.
It lowers the barrier to entry, but completely changes the management dynamics.
Next, it explicitly names IoT, the Internet of Things, as a convergent technology space.
IoT is the embedding of sensors, software, and network connectivity into everyday physical objects, from industrial manufacturing machines to household refrigerators.
It is a massive convergence space because it forces traditional hardware companies to suddenly become software and data analytics companies.
It creates staggering new B2B opportunities like predictive maintenance software for factory floors.
But it also introduces horrifying new vulnerabilities regarding data privacy and cybersecurity.
The syllabus also highlights crowdfunding, and this feels like a trend that completely rewrites the rules of the funding and financing chapter.
It absolutely democratizes capital. Historically, founders were at the mercy of the incredibly narrow gatekeepers of venture capital or traditional bank loans.
Crowdfunding platforms like Kickstarter or equity crowdfunding portals allow founders to bypass the gatekeepers and pitch directly to the global public.
But its true power isn't just capital. It is the ultimate market validation.
If 1,000 people pre-order your tech gadget before you even manufacture it, you haven't just raised money.
No, you have unequivocally proven to yourself and the market that your distinctive competence has real visceral demand.
Okay, so you are navigating the triple helix, you are writing the macro trends, and you are building your venture.
But if you are innovating in these cutting-edge, highly lucrative spaces, you are inherently creating something incredibly valuable and highly vulnerable.
Intellectual property or IP.
Unit 2 of the syllabus shifts into a heavy focus on creating, protecting, and managing technology and innovation.
This is the defensive architecture of your business.
Yes, if your business plan is the blueprint for a beautiful, highly profitable castle, your IP protections are the stone walls, the archers, and the deep moat surrounding it.
And the triple helix ecosystem we just discussed is the broader kingdom that ultimately decides whether your castle is granted lucrative trade routes or if it gets besieged by angry regulators and ruthless copycat competitors.
I love that analogy because it emphasizes that a blueprint alone is worthless if anyone can just walk over and steal it.
If you do not build the walls, a massive legacy corporation will simply see your brilliant innovation, realize you validated the market, and use their infinite resources to crush you by copying it.
So true. The course material classifies several highly distinct types of intellectual property rights. It's not just a blanket concept. It is a tactical arsenal.
We need to understand the mechanism of each weapon.
Let's dismantle them tactically. First, the most famous, patents.
A patent is essentially a grand bargain struck between the inventor and the government, right?
Exactly. It protects a true invention, a novel, non-obvious process, machine, or chemical composition.
The government grants you a legal monopoly, the absolute right to exclude anyone else from making, using, or selling your invention for a limited time, usually 20 years.
But the price of that monopoly is that you must publicly disclose the exact, highly detailed blueprints of how your invention works to the public so that society can learn from it.
It is a trade-off. Monopoly for transparency.
And the syllabus specifically notes that students must examine the impact of AI in patents, which is arguably the most explosive legal debate in tech right now.
Why is this so explosive?
It is a massive legal gray area. Current patent law globally is deeply human-centric. It assumes an inventor is a human being.
But what happens when a pharmaceutical startup uses a massive AI neural network to rapidly simulate and invent a genuinely novel, life-saving chemical compound?
Who owns the patent? Can an algorithm be legally listed as the inventor?
If not, does the human who wrote the prompt own it? Does the company that coded the AI own it?
If AI can generate thousands of patents a day, does it completely break the concept of prior art and patentability?
These are unresolved ecosystem issues that founders in the AI space must navigate blindly.
Wow. Okay, moving from function to form, we have designs.
Yes, industrial designs or design patents.
These do not protect how a product functionally works. They strictly protect the unique visual appearance, the ornamental aesthetic.
Think of the highly specific, instantly recognizable curvature of an Apple iPhone or the iconic fluted shape of a classic Coca-Cola glass bottle.
If a competitor makes a phone that functions differently but looks identical, they're infringing on your design IP.
Next in the arsenal, trademarks.
Trademarks protect the psychological identity of your business. They protect brand identifiers, words, specific phrases, symbols, or logos that distinguish the source of your goods from your competitors in the minds of consumers.
The Nike swoosh. The golden arches of McDonald's.
The syllabus heavily emphasizes understanding the prerequisites for registering a trademark. The fundamental rule is distinctiveness.
You cannot trademark a generic term.
No, you cannot trademark the word apple if you sell literal fruit. But you can trademark Apple if you sell computers, because in that context, it is highly distinctive and arbitrary.
Then we have copyright.
Copyright is automatically generated the moment an original work of authorship is fixed in a tangible medium of expression.
It protects books, music, movies, and architectural drawings.
But for the tech entrepreneur, its primary importance is that it protects software code. The specific written lines of code you author are protected from literal copying, even if the underlying functional idea of the software isn't patented.
And finally, the most mysterious and often the most powerful, trade secrets and know-how.
This is a critical strategic alternative to the patent. A trade secret is any highly valuable business information that derives its economic value from not being generally known to the public.
And crucially, is subject to reasonable, documented efforts by the company to maintain its absolute secrecy.
The syllabus stresses the operational discipline of handling confidential information through NDAs and secure servers.
But why would a founder choose a trade secret over a patent? If a patent gives you a government-enforced monopoly, why hide it?
Because of the grand bargain we discussed earlier, a patent requires total public disclosure and it expires after 20 years.
Once it expires, generic competitors flood the market. Look at the pharmaceutical industry.
Right. But a trade secret can theoretically last forever, as long as you can keep the secret.
Coca-Cola never patented their exact syrup recipe.
If they had, the patent would have expired a century ago, and anyone could legally make exact Coca-Cola. By keeping it a fiercely guarded trade secret, they have maintained their distinctive competence for generations.
However, the immense risk is that if a competitor legally reverse engineers your product or independently discovers your secret without stealing it, you have zero legal protection. You lose the moat instantly.
So the master-level strategy for the entrepreneur isn't just mindlessly screaming, patent everything.
It is about meticulously choosing the appropriate defensive architecture for the specific venture.
You have to ruthlessly evaluate the massive legal costs associated with filing, the geographical coverage you actually need, and whether your startup actually has the war chest to litigate and enforce those rights if a massive corporation decides to infringe on them.
Exactly. And ultimately, it all drives toward the commercialization of intellectual property. How do you transmute those abstract legal rights into actual scalable revenue?
Do you license your patented algorithm to a massive legacy company for a royalty percentage? Do you build the physical product yourself and protect the brand with trademarks?
That defensive strategy circles directly back to the core of your business model and the operational realities of your business plan. It is a completely integrated, inescapable ecosystem.
Okay, to cement this final, massive structural pillar for our listener, practice question number 4. If you need to demonstrate mastery of the macro environment, here is the final core synthesis. Identify the critical macro trends currently restructuring the tech entrepreneurship landscape, and thoroughly explain the strategic mechanisms of intellectual property rights in defending a new venture.
To articulate that, you highlight how the gig economy revolutionizes scalable talent sourcing, how IoT creates convergent hardware-software vulnerabilities, and how crowdfunding democratizes capital and provides raw market validation.
Furthermore, you must explain that IP acts as the defensive moat around a venture's distinctive competence.
By strategically deploying patents which trade disclosure for a temporary monopoly on function.
Trademarks to protect brand identity,
Copyrights to protect literal code.
and trade secrets, protecting perpetual value through absolute silence.
An entrepreneur ensures their innovation cannot be legally plundered, allowing them to safely commercialize and survive within the chaotic pressures of the triple helix ecosystem.
That represents a total comprehensive mastery of the material.
Wow. Okay, take a deep breath. We have covered a truly staggering amount of intellectual and strategic ground today. Let's do a rapid, high-level recap of the entire entrepreneurial journey we just mapped out.
We started at the absolute genesis, the raw spark of an idea, but we fundamentally shattered the myth of the inventor.
We learned the brutal, critical difference between an invention sitting idly in a laboratory and an innovation that is successfully, painstakingly implemented into the economic market by the sheer will of an entrepreneur.
And we issued a massive flashing warning about the tech founder's ultimate trap.
The psychological retreat into obsessing over the comfort of complex code, instead of facing the terrifying reality of solving a real, validated market problem that humans will actually pay for.
From there, we structurally categorized the venture. We examined the matrix. Are you solving an ROI-driven problem for a business with B2B, navigating the emotional desires of a consumer with B2C, or dealing with the massive procurement cycles of the government in B2G?
And we established the absolute operational necessity of the golden rule. Restrict your startup to one single quadrant initially, or the conflicting customer acquisition strategies will rip your limited resources apart.
Then we translated that abstract choice into a strategic weapon, the business plan.
We walked through the architecture, the introduction, the body, and the appendices, and highlighted the absolute necessity of proving your unique, distinctive competence.
We learned to write from the user's perspective, not the engineer's.
And we unpacked the profound psychological strategy of why thrashing your competitors actually makes you look arrogant and defensive to investors. Show the objective data and let the investor discover your superiority.
Finally, we zoomed all the way out to the macro ecosystem. We analyzed the intertwined gears of the triple helix: university, industry, and government.
We explored how macro trends like crowdfunding and IoT dictate strategy.
And we learned how to build an impenetrable legal moat around your venture, using the highly specific, tactical mechanisms of intellectual property, balancing the transparency of patents against the eternal risk of trade secrets.
If you have been tracking with us for this entire deep dive, you should feel incredibly, overwhelmingly equipped. You do not just have a surface-level understanding, you have a comprehensive, structurally sound grasp of the foundational realities of tech entrepreneurship.
You are fundamentally ready to dominate that exam, to walk confidently into that boardroom pitch, or to sit down for that grueling late-night coding session in your garage with a clear, strategic vision of the market.
True knowledge is not just memorization. It is the ability to synthesize and apply these frameworks to chaos. You possess those analytical tools now.
But before we sign off, I want to leave you with one final, deeply provocative thought, something to mull over when you are staring at the ceiling tonight.
We talked extensively earlier about David Cohen's brilliant advice to find a point of pain for the customer. Look at what is bugging you.
And we talked about the harsh reality that expert entrepreneurs fully expect the market to behave entirely differently than their pristine business plans anticipate.
Yes, that friction is the absolute core of the iterative process.
Right. So if the market is constantly aggressively shifting beneath your feet, and your original beloved invention is almost never the final successful innovation that goes to market.
Is it possible that the ultimate, most agonizing point of pain that an entrepreneur must continuously solve is not actually the customer's problem?
Is the true existential point of pain the founder's own constant, highly uncomfortable need to brutally adapt?
To kill their own darlings, to abandon their ego, and to entirely rewrite their original vision the second it collides with reality.
That elevates the conversation from the mechanics of business to the profound psychology of the founder. It suggests that building the actual corporate structure is relatively easy compared to the grueling psychological requirement of constantly rebuilding your own mindset to match the evolving truth of the market.
Exactly. Think about that the next time you look at a simple, jagged white line on an X-ray and find yourself wishing that building a company was that wonderfully, comfortably binary.
It isn't. It is chaotic, it is terrifying, and it is entirely up to you to bridge the gap.
Keep questioning your assumptions, keep rigorously learning the market, and keep building the future. Thanks for joining us on this deep dive.